Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as well as U.S. President Joe Biden, will be meeting virtually today. Certainly different. This marks Biden's first bilateral meeting as president, in fact. So each leader is bringing along some key member of their cabinet, and they will discuss a range of issues. Let's find out what to expect. Our chief political correspondent, David Akin, is tracking this important meeting. Of course, no shortage of issues, David. What can we expect, do you think?
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Anthony. I mean, anytime Canada and the U.S. get together, lots to talk about and lots of ground to cover. They're going to meet for about 90 minutes and bring along several cabinet ministers on both sides. So 90 minutes, beginning about 4 p.m. Eastern. They're going to be talking about defense, for instance. This is a very important issue for the United States and for Canada. And so you can expect Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan, Public Safety Minister Bill Blair to be joined by their U.S. counterparts, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and the Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. They're going to talk about climate change. Both Trudeau and Biden are, so-called progressive leaders. Climate change is important to both leaders. Canada will have Environment Minister John Wilkinson in on the meeting, and the point man for Biden is John Kerry, who will be familiar to a lot of Canadians. And of course, a lot of talk about the economy and trade. I mean, this is the biggest file for Canada and the U.S. The two biggest trading partners in the world, $2 billion a day going back and forth. One irritant right now for Canada is Biden's intention to implement a Buy America policy. I know the Trudeau government would like to modify that. That whole idea is that the U.S. government will restrict federal government contracts for infrastructure, economic recovery to American firms. And I think you'll see there will be some discussion today to see if that can be modified. So lots and lots of ground to cover this afternoon.
Now, this is the first formal bilateral meeting that President Biden will have since becoming president. And, it's historic because it is with Canada. Talk about the relationship and how important this is overall for the relationship between U.S. and our country.
Yeah, so this is a meeting that in most other circumstances would be kind of normal. Americans meet with the Canadians, but this comes, of course, after 4 years of Donald Trump. And the Trump approach to foreign policy was all about Trump, and it was about American exceptionalism, the idea that America can go it alone. And often, Donald Trump was annoying his traditional friends and allies, including Canada. So for the Biden administration, this is a particularly important meeting to send a message to America's allies in Europe and elsewhere saying, America's going to carry on its diplomacy in a more traditional manner, the way it had done so for most of the time after the Second World War. And that means starting with America's essential best friend, and that is Canada. So that's why this meeting today, without any drama, without any expected name callings, without a tweet storm, before and after, sends a message to the rest of the world and Canada that American diplomacy is returning to a more normal or traditional footing.
Now, that will be reassuring. Now, there is another country that is really top of mind for both the U.S. and Canada, and that is China, of course. It was in the news last night here in this country as Parliament passed the motion when it came to the Uyghur population in that country. But then you have the issues of the two Michaels and the outstanding issue of Meng Wanzhou, not to mention the huge economic relationship that both countries have. How do you square that circle, and where does that come up in today's meeting, do you think?
Yeah, China is definitely going to come up in today's meeting. In fact, Prime Minister Trudeau is going to build on comments he made last week when the G7 leaders met, again virtually. We're not going to see Trudeau essentially make an ask of the United States, say, on the two Michaels affair. So in other words, it's unlikely Trudeau will say, hey, can the U.S. drop its case against Meng Wanzhou, which may free the two Michaels? That said, that case will be referenced in the context of Mr. Biden, Mr. Trudeau, what do we do about China and human rights? And that gets into the broader discussion about arbitrary detention, that's the two Michaels, about what to do with the Uyghurs, that's the genocide that China is committing in northwestern China. Gets to talk about democracy in Hong Kong. Those are all issues that are important to both Canada and the United States. And yes, it goes towards How do we square that with our trading relationship? Both the United States and Canada have a major trading relationship, obviously, with China. So there will be some very high-level discussion about that. And then remember, it's cabinet ministers are here, and cabinet ministers then go away from this meeting, and they get to work on files. And that, too, is different from the Trump administration, where often work got done despite Trump. And now it will be done by cabinet-level members with the encouragement and instruction from each side's leader.
As we usually see with these meetings, there is a statement, a virtual joint statement. But this time it's going to be interesting because it is virtual. Any announcements? Do we expect anything?
You know, this is the thing. No, I don't think there will be any major announcements. There'll be lots of bromides with best friend, blah, blah, blah. And again, that goes back to the idea that the most remarkable thing about this meeting is how unremarkable it will be. It'll be no drama. It'll be perfectly normal. All these nice things will be said. And again, for the resetting of the Canada-U.S. relationship, for the resetting of the relationship of the U.S. to the rest of the world, again, an entirely unremarkable meeting with some unremarkable bromides at the end of it will be the most remarkable thing compared to those last 4 years under Trump.
Well, it might be friendlier, but explain that to a lot of people who don't exactly appreciate the Buy American at the expense of their business. But that is, of course, another issue to be continued. David, we always appreciate your time and your insight. That is our chief political correspondent, David Akin, joining us from our capital in Ottawa. Thank you again.